Welcome back to the Richard Sherman podcast. And remember, y'all got to hit that sub button if you're new. But I'm here to talk about my guy, Joe Burrow. And unfortunately, it appears that he's lost for 3 months after a turf toe injury. And fans, ladies and gentlemen, I know it sounds turf toe. It just sounds like, oh man, he should be able to play through. Turf toe is serious. Turf toe, you imagine if you got a knife in your big toe and you're just walking around. That's what it feels like. It's a torn ligament in your big toe, and it's a debilitating injury. And I understand why he can't play on it. He may require surgery. I think they're still talking to Bob Anderson about that and sending the images and getting the expert opinion. But it's tough on me to justify what the Bengals have been doing. Joe Burrow is unquestionably one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League, top 3 any given year that he's played. He's taken the Bengals to high heights with a Super Bowl appearance. But them putting him behind these offensive lines every single year just is mind-boggling for me. In 2020, they were the 29th ranked O-line. In 2021, the 30th. In 2022, the 30th ranked O-line. 2023, the 27th ranked O-line. 2024, 32nd ranked O-line. And last year, the 28th ranked offensive line in the National Football League. And that's where it's head scratching for me, because you have one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. He's not the most durable guy. I don't want to call him Glass Joe, but it's starting to get to that time. If you just look back to even his college history, wrist fracture in 2017, torn rib cartilage in 2020, torn ACL, PCL, MCL, meniscus in 2020 with the Bengals, dislocated finger in 2021, MCL sprain in 2022, calf strain in training camp of 2023, and then tore his wrist ligament that put him out for the remainder of the season in 2023, and now turf toe, which may put him out for the remainder of this season in 2025. That's a really, really, really tough injury history. And when you know that, you would think, hey, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure he's upright. He's protected as best as we can do it. We'll pay as much as we can, draft good, to make sure at minimum we give him protection, and so he can be with us for a full season. I mean, 3 of the last 4 years he's been injured. So I don't understand. You pay Jamar Chase, you pay T. Higgins, rightfully so. But what does it matter if your franchise quarterback isn't going to be out there? Now, that's no slight against Jake Browning and what he's doing. I think he's doing a solid job. But that you got Joe Burrow for a reason. You're not going to protect him. You're not going to do anything to make sure, I don't know, your franchise quarterback can survive a full season. That's what I don't understand about this roster building process for the Cincinnati Bengals. You gave him all this money, deservedly so. You know he gets beat up. He isn't, he isn't the most durable guy in the world, and you don't do enough to protect him. Now, I'm not this is no slight. You can't control injuries in the National Football League, especially the injuries he's had: torn ligament in your wrist, turf toe, MCL sprain, torn ACL, MCL, PCL. Like, those aren't like, hey man, he's not working out enough. He's not stretching good enough. Like, those are just unfortunate injuries that happen in this physical, violent sport, and happen especially when your offensive line is one of the worst in the bottom quartile in pass protection. So again, Cincinnati Bengals, you got to do better. You got to figure it out. You got to find a way to protect your franchise quarterback, because you're doing not only your team a disservice, but you're doing the National Football League a disservice. The league is a better place when Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are healthy, and that offense is incredibly fun to watch with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They do a phenomenal job. But now we're robbed of that because you can't protect your guy. You can't protect your guy. They were able to still win that game. But, man, it's really frustrating to see a guy like Joe Burrow continue to have to deal with injuries because his team will not address the offensive line issues. And speaking of offensive line issues, the Minnesota Vikings had a lot of issues versus the Atlanta Falcons. J.J. McCarthy was sacked, I think, 5 times in the game, under duress a lot more. And I know everybody was on my case. Oh, you pulled the trigger too early, saying that I don't know if he's the answer. I want to clarify this because I was right, and I still know I'm right. Um, but it's being perceived different than what the way I intended. I'm not sure he's the answer because you're not giving him a great chance to show what he's capable of. I think, in my humble opinion, they should have went with Sam Darnold for one more year. And whether that's franchising him or an extension or whatever you needed to do to make sure Sam Darnold was the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings for 1 year. You could have franchised him and then figured it out after that. Because that would have gave JJ McCarthy time to be healthy, make sure he's fully recovered from his injury, to learn how to prepare for these games, to put his pads on, warm up, to practice, and not have the full pressure of the franchise on his shoulders his first game out. You get to watch a veteran. You get to learn from. That's why a lot of these quarterbacks who've learned from veterans and sat before they've played have had success. They've gotten a chance to toe dip, to develop mentally, physically. He's a young kid, and I think he's gonna struggle because the expectations for the Minnesota Vikings are high. They went 14-3 last year with Sam Darnold. Was that a fluke year? Maybe. Can they do that again? Could they have done that again with Sam Darnold? I'm not sure. I don't think so, but we'll never know because you insert J.J. McCarthy into the equation now. While the expectations are sky high, he's still developing as a player behind a not so great offensive line. You're now going to have your superstar receiver very frustrated because you have a developing kid here who may miss him on some plays, who may not see him on some plays. And also, you're going to get a fan base that's going to grow increasingly frustrated because the expectations were 14-3 coming off of last year. You know this team is talented enough. You know they're capable of winning a lot of football games, but maybe they won't. Maybe they will win. Maybe they'll win 9 games this year. And now you start to get a fan base that starts to question this young quarterback and start to stunt his growth and affect his confidence because they think he's the reason you guys aren't 14-3 now. And I know you guys are going to say, "Oh, we'll be patient and we understand he's just a young guy and this is technically his rookie season. It's the first year." No, there's no patience in the world today. I'm sorry. That's why it's better to protect these young guys. If this team goes 8-9 or 7-10, look through the vitriol on social media. It'll be negative, I'm sure. You won't be sitting there like, "Oh man, just give him time, give him development." You'll be saying draft another quarterback. And that's the part where I was like, I'm not sure he's the answer because he's not being given a fair shake of it in the first place. I mean, he's on a team that's expected to be contenders because they were contenders last year. That's what their record said. Unfortunately, they got put out in the playoffs, and everybody's like, "Well, Sam Darnold's ceiling, that was his ceiling." Maybe that was a team ceiling. And inserting a rookie quarterback into that situation and then lowering yourself, hoping to get above where you were last season, just didn't make sense to me. Maybe he'll turn it around and he'll play better than he ever played in college and really show me and show all the critics that he's the guy and he should have been the guy to begin with. But I don't know. I think in a situation that they were in where you got a guy that fit your system so perfectly, seemed like it was a hand in glove fit for Sam Darnold, for Kevin O'Connell, for Justin Jefferson, for Addison. Everybody seemed like they were in a good spot. And now you put the rookie in a situation. Whereas if Justin Jefferson's production dips substantially, there's going to be some conversations about his future because now this is the future of the franchise. And so now it starts to avalanche down and starts to snowball because what are we doing? What are we doing? I want to be here, but now you're setting me back and I can't showcase my abilities. I can't help this team win. And then a whole lot of things start to unravel. Um, the Vikings are second to last in yards per game and total offense. That's not a surprise. That's not a surprise. It's going to get frustrating in that locker room. And it's unfortunate because you could have kept the veteran in there, let the young guy learn instead of putting him in a basically no-win situation. The only way he could ever like have a good season is if he just thrived out the gate. Not every rookie thrives out the gate. And so there's a disappointment level for me that they put him in a tough position. Now he's 24 for 41 on the season, 58% completion percentage, 301 yards, 2 TDs, 3 interceptions. We'll see how that goes in the future, but he hasn't played really world beater defenses either. These defenses aren't great, and I'm not saying that the Falcons are Falcons of old. They got some pass rush ability now, but Sam Darnold had a really good game against the Falcons last year, and now you're going to have to contend against Detroit in your own division. You're going to have to contend against the Green Bay Packers, who are looking their pass rush is even more ferocious, and their defense is playing as well as anybody. So it's not like things are going to get easier for the Minnesota Vikings, but we'll see. We'll see. I just wanted to take a second to explain that to you guys because it's going to be a tough season for JJ McCarthy if something doesn't change. And hopefully the Minnesota Vikings fans are really patient. Hopefully Justin Jefferson is really patient. I know Kevin O'Connell is going to do everything he can to put him in positions to be successful. They got a pretty solid run game, but if this quarterback doesn't show more promise, people are going to start stacking the box and make it a lot more difficult to run the football. And we'll see that his next 3 games are against the AFC North. He got the Cincinnati Bengals, he got the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he got the Browns. The Steelers have it. They got a veteran defense that on paper should be better than they've played. We'll see how it goes against them. The Bengals have historically had an awful defense, and the Browns struggled last week versus the Baltimore Ravens. So there's a chance for him to go on a nice run here, and hopefully he does. But I don't know. I just don't think he's been put in the best position. I'm not saying by the coaching staff or Kevin O'Connell in this offense. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think he should have got the opportunity to sit behind Sam Darnold healthy, not on injured reserve, not because he had to, because he couldn't play, but sit and get to put his pads on, put his helmet on, and learn through an entire NFL season like a lot of these successful quarterbacks have gotten to do. That's my opinion. As always, I appreciate you guys joining me. I appreciate you guys sticking around, listening to me. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I really do appreciate that. I'll see you next time.